Hello everyone, I am Fiza, student teacher, Army Institute of Education, Greater Noida. In this presentation, we'll be dealing with approaches of counseling, and the one that we'll be talking about is eclectic counseling. Now, starting with the definition of eclectic counseling, the chief advocate of eclectic counseling was F.C. Thorne. The eclectic counseling is defined as the combination of the two techniques, directive and non-directive counseling. Now, before heading towards what is eclectic counseling, it is important to understand what is directive counseling and what is non-directive counseling. And then, together as a whole, we'll study what is eclectic counseling. Now, if we talk about directive counseling, so in this counseling, the counselor plays an important role as it is regarded as a means of making people understand as to how to learn to solve their own problem. It is also known as counselor-centered approach. Reason why is it being called as counselor-centered approach? Because it is the counselor who will be carrying out the activities and making sure that there are requisite changes in the behavioral aspects of the counseling. Non-directive eclectic counseling is the one where it is the counselee who is at the nucleus of the process, and then the whole process of counseling is being carried out. Now, eclectic counseling is one where both the techniques are used, that is the directive and the non-directive. Now, both the directive and non-directive techniques are used according to the situation. For example, if the counselor feels that in this situation he should give the base to the counselee to come up with his or her emotions and express himself or herself, then in that case it will be a non-directive approach. Whereas if he feels that he should take the lead in something, he should help or he should initiate, then it is a directive technique. Thus, it is together called as an eclectic technique, which is a combination of both directive and non-directive technique. Now, we'll be dealing with the characteristics of eclectic counseling. Now, since we know that it is a combination of both directive and non-directive approaches, thus it deals with various aspects. First is, for example, if we consider the experience of mutual confidence and faith is basic. Why is it being called basic? Is because it is in this counseling that since the approaches are changing according to the changing needs of the situation, it is very important that the counselor and the counselee have fidelity between themselves and they are ready to change according to the given situations. Second is, according to need of the client, directive and non-directive methods are used. Since it is one of the prime characteristics of eclectic counseling, then we have importance is given to job efficiency in treatment. Now, since we know that in this process, eclectic counseling process, both directive and non-directive techniques are used, it is very important to make sure that the counselor has requisite set of skills. Because in order of changing the skills according to situation, it is very important that the counselor is well equipped. That is the only reason that why we need professional counselors who are well equipped with the skill so that they can easily keep on changing both the skills according to the need of the counselee. Then we have professional efficiency and skill counselors are must, that we have already discussed. Then provides opportunity to client to find solution for his or her problem. That is very relatable to directive. Here, when the counselor feels that in this situation he should provide an opportunity to the counselee to look for the solution on his or her own, then he'll definitely provide a platform where he or she could come up and look for the solution of the problem on her own. Then counselor remains passive. That is in similarly we talked in the previous part, like providing opportunity to the client. So when the client is being provided the opportunity, it is the counselor who will remain passive in that case. Now the next slide that we have moved on to is steps of eclectic counseling. Now, since the counseling process is a very goal oriented process, thus it demands that there must be specific steps that must be followed. So we are being given with the 6 steps that are diagnosis of problem. Now, before initiating the process of counseling, it is very important for counselor to diagnose the problem. What is the problem that the counselee is facing? Is it there any mental problem? Anything that is bothering constantly? What is that is being finded out by the counselor? Then we have analysis of problem. After diagnosing, it is the analysis that takes place. What proportion of the thing is that is being done in analysis. Then we have preparation of tentative plan for modifying factors. Now, since the counselor takes into account the various factors that are playing there, it is very important that the counselor prepares with a tentative plan as to how the thing is going to take place. Then we have securing effective conditions for counseling. This is the prime requisite. In a very conducive environment, a very friendly and very light and smooth environment is the one that the counselee needs, because at the time the counselor will get to know that if the counselee has suffered from various malignant situations, so in that case it is very important to provide a conducive environment to counselee. So it is one among the step of eclectic counseling. Then we have interviewing and stimulating the client to develop his own resources. Now, in order to understand as to what is the problem, it is very important that the counselor interviews the counselee. In that case, he digs out various experiences and tries to build a fidelity between him and the counselee, and then build a major trust relationship between themselves, and then he stimulates the client to develop his own resources. So in that way, the counselor acts in a very constructive way to help the counselee. Then we have the proper handling of any related problems which may contribute to adjustment. Now, if the counselor come across that there are few experiences that the counselee is not able to adjust with, then he or she can help the counselee by making her conducive to the techniques, and then proper handling of any problem which may then contribute to the adjustment, which is the prime requisite. With this, we come to the advantages of eclectic counseling. So there are many advantages that the eclectic counseling has with itself. The first is flexibility. Now, why is it being called flexible approach? Since we know that it is a blend of directive and non-directive counseling, it is flexible because it is the counselor who is having that much freedom that he can easily make the situations conducive for the counselee. Then it is the full participation, since it is not rigid in its approach, it is not restricted to its just one approach, it is a blend of two approaches. Thus full participation is expected and it results in better experiences, ensures readjustment. Since two techniques are there, so according to the situation, adjustment can be made. Then it is a very cost effective and practical approach. Since then freedom of choice and expression for adaptation to techniques. Since two techniques are used again, so there is freedom of choice and expression for adaptation to the techniques, that whenever the counselor feels that he needs to change the technique, or he needs to change the technique according to the need of the counselee, and then switch on to a non-directive technique, then he'll definitely do that. Then encourages counselor to use different types of strategy and approaches. Since it is one such approach where the counselor has the freedom to take into account various approaches, thus it helps the counselor to make use of best techniques so that he can help the counselee. Now we come to the disadvantages of eclectic counseling. Many says that it is vague, opportunistic and superficial. Now since it is a blend of two, it may happen that things may seem to be happening in a positive direction. However, it may happen that the result is not of that much good. It's not that much appropriate. Opportunistic, it may happen that in the way of utilizing two types of techniques, the counselor is not able to effectively deliver or make requisite changes in the behavior of the counselee. Then some say that there are problems like directive and non-directive methods cannot be used because the approach for both is different. Thus using a combination of both of them can be resulted into a failure one. Then it also raises a question as how much freedom is given to the client. For example, we have seen that according to the situation, he puts the client as the nucleus of the counseling process. Then how much freedom should be given? That is again a question. And then lack of skill of counselor can do more harm than good. This is a very important point of eclectic counseling because since it uses two approaches, it is a blend of two approaches. It is a prime requisite that the counselor must have requisite set of skills, capabilities and techniques to do best to the counselee or the client, because in case if he fails to do so, then the very purpose of counseling is failed, and instead of doing any good, more harm is being produced to the counselee. Thus it is, and the purpose is also defeated. Thus it is very important that a very skilled, very capable person is carrying out this process. So with this we end up this. If we come to the conclusion, it basically says that eclectic counseling as we have studied is a blend of directive and non-directive approaches, where the counselor takes into account the situation and according to that he uses the technique, be it either a directive one or a non-directive one. Then it has certain advantages with itself. For example, freedom of choice, freedom of expression according to the technique. But then at the other side, it also has few disadvantages like how much freedom should be given. So it is in contrast. Since every coin has two sides, so is with this also. Then we have seen the characteristics also, like very skilled professionals should be there. Fidelity relation is being constructed between the counselor and the counselee, since it makes sure that both the techniques, directive and non-directive, are being in use. It is very important that it is making sure that everything is delivered in a very perfect way and the purpose of counseling is reached, the goal is attained. With this we end this session. Thank you.